Okay, I'd like to call this meeting in order and welcome everybody. Pledge of Allegiance be led by Supervisor Thomas.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Mr. Conover?
Here.
Mr. Monroe? Mr. Gerard? Here. Mr. McDevitt?
Here.
Mr. Taylor?
Here.
Mr. Brock?
Here.
Mr. Kenny?
Here.
Mrs. Frazier? Here. Mr. Simpson?
Here.
Mr. Vansalo?
Here.
Mr. Dickinson?
Here.
Mr. Merlino?
Here.
Mr. Stroud?
Here.
Ms. Seaver? Mr. Sokol?
Here.
Mr. Beatty?
Here.
Mr. Westcott?
Here.
Mr. Thomas?
Here.
Ms. Wood? Here. Chairman Garrity?
Here. Motion to approve the minutes of the October 17th and November 7th board meetings. Motion. Motion by Mr. Brock, second by Mr. Taylor. All those in favor?
Aye.
At this time, I'd just like to take a minute. We have on our agenda we're going to talk about court expansion. Judge Krogman is in attendance. Judge Hall, Judge Caruso, and Judge Kokoma is here to help us with any questions on the court when we get into the resolutions on the court. So I welcome them, and hopefully we'll get to that in short order. First item of business, I'd like to declare a public hearing open on the Warren County Sewer District Industrial Park Assessment Roll of 2015 and request that the clerk read the notice of public hearing.
The Warren County Sewer District Industrial Park has completed its annual assessment of the cost of the increase and improvement of facilities apportioned to the Warren County Sewer District Industrial Park by reason of the intermunicipal agreement for South Queensberry Avenue Sanitary Sewer District. A benefit to tax roll for 2015 has been completed, showing the annual assessment on the lots and parcels of land in the Warren County Sewer District Industrial Park in proportion to the benefit which each lot or parcel will derive therefrom. The assessment roll describes each lot or parcel of land in such a manner that it may be ascertained and identified, and shows the name or names of the reputed owner or owners thereof, together with the aggregate amount of assessment levied upon each lot or parcel of land. A copy of said assessment roll is available for inspection during regular business hours by contacting the clerk of the Board of Supervisors at the above stated address, and may be viewed on the Warren County website. Pursuant to Resolution Number 496 of 2014, adopted by the Warren County Board of Supervisors, a public hearing will be held by the Warren County Board of Supervisors at the Supervisors Room in the Warren County Municipal Center, 1340 State Route 9, Lake George, on the 21st day of November 2014 at 10 a.m., at which time and place all said Board of Supervisors will hear and consider any objections that may be made to the assessment roll.
Anybody who wishes to address the board on a public hearing, please report to the podium and state your name for the record. Any supervisors? We'll leave this public hearing open for a while, and if anybody wants to get up at any time, please just make notice to us. The next public hearing will be a public hearing on the 2015 tentative budget, and request the clerk to read the notice on that public hearing.
Notice is hereby given that the Budget Officer of the County of Warren has prepared and filed a proposed budget for the fiscal year 2015, and the Board of Supervisors will meet in the Supervisors Room at the Warren County Municipal Center on the 21st day of November 2014 at 10 a.m. for the purpose of holding a public hearing on the tentative budget of the County of Warren for the fiscal year beginning January 1, 2015, and that at such hearing, any person may be heard in favor of or against the tentative budget as compiled, or for or against any items therein contained. Copies of said tentative budget are available at the office of the Clerk of the Board of Supervisors in the Warren County Municipal Center, where they may be inspected or procured by any interested person during regular business hours and may be viewed on the Warren County website. Pursuant to Section 359 of the county law, the maximum salaries that may be fixed and payable during the fiscal year 2015 to members of the Board of Supervisors and to the chairman thereof are hereby specified as follows. Members of the Board of Supervisors, $17,122 each. Chairman of the Board of Supervisors, $21,437. Further notice is hereby given that the following is a summary of the tentative budget of Warren County for the fiscal year beginning January 1, 2015. Gross appropriations of $151,900,985, less estimated revenues not including sales tax credit, and surplus appropriated amounting to $110,669,036, leaving a balance of $41,231,949 to be raised by taxation, by order of the Board of Supervisors.
Okay, same rules apply. Anybody wish to address the board on the 2015 tentative budget, please come to the podium and state your name for the record.
Travis Whitehead, Queensbury. The only issue that I'm taking up is in that county budget, about half of it is a list of salary positions. And I don't have an issue with any of them really either, other than you will be considering some later resolutions today that are subject to permissive referendum. And I believe that there are some salary positions in the budget that should be subject to permissive referendum, and they are not. It actually, and the ones in question actually are your salaries, the supervisors, and also Mr. Dussek's salary. And the problem with that is that the law states that, you know, elected official, if he votes for his own raise, that should be subject to permissive referendum. That is, the taxpayers can, through petition, ask that be reviewed in a vote, be held. But in this case, you would have to actually vote against the budget, which I'm not recommending, and you would also then, you know, screw up all the other salaries that are in there. I think the appropriate thing to have been done was for your salaries to be pulled out, as they were for many other people in Resolution 551, I think it is, or 555, 551, I believe, and you know, be held out separate from that. That is my concern about passing the budget, but I don't know how you can do otherwise than to vote for this, because, you know, it's lumped in with so many other things, and it would be so disruptive. But I would hope that you would consider at some point separating your salary raises from the rest of the budget. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to address the board on the budget? Any supervisors wish to comment? Supervisor wants to comment.
I have a few comments on the budget. I know how much work has gone into this budget. I know it's a difficult process, and but I am going to vote no today on the budget for the following reasons. When we budget, we take a look at what was the adopted budget last year, because we haven't had final numbers come in for the year. And so when we make a statement like we're cutting the budget by $3 million, we don't really know that we're doing that. We have line items that we've cut up to $3 million, but we don't know if the total budget has in fact been cut by $3 million. So I just feel that that isn't a sure thing. We also are taking $3.6 million out of our savings account in order to keep our property tax cap, our property taxes under the property tax cap. That's a significant amount of money. I think that that needs to be made front and center. I'm also, last time when we had the special budget meeting, I said I was a little nervous about the sales tax projections. I can say I'm really nervous about them now. My feeling is that basing our sales tax increase this year off of a 2.5% increase is not accurate. We all know we're not going to get to 2.5%. We also know fuel sales, gasoline prices have dropped by 25%. That's a big part of the sales tax revenue. Very concerned about that. I'm concerned about the $500,000 that showed up a few weeks ago from casino revenues. I think that that is a highly questionable line item. I would really like to vote for this budget because it does stay under the property tax cap, but I feel that we did not take as hard of a look at cutting spending as we should have. I've been challenged by some of my colleagues to come to the table with an example of that. I did that with the airport this year. In the prior 2 years, we're spending a combined $1 million when you look at the net operating deficit and hangar costs this year. That's $1 million. We never sat down and seriously even talked about it. We just, put it into the budget once again. So I don't know if there are other savings in other departments, but if that is an example, then it appears that there could be savings in other departments as well. So for those reasons, I'm going to be voting against the budget today. I wish I could vote for it because there are a lot of great employees here that need those raises, but I don't feel that we've done our due diligence on this budget, and we need to take a harder look at cutting spending. Thank you.
Anybody else? Rachel? Supervisor Seaver?
I'm thrilled to see so many people here today, and I applaud your participation, your attendance, but I am surprised that we only heard from one person during the public hearing for the budget. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I do know that Mr. Whitehead raises a question that Supervisor Beatty brought up during our budget committee meeting, and I'm hoping to get some clarification on it. I know I've talked to many of my colleagues, and I've obviously said, hey, if giving the supervisors raises and the county administrator raise needs to be done in a different format or fashion, I'm completely okay with that. I'm okay with not taking it at all. But my question is really more of a legal one for you, Martin, is where do we stand on this? We heard Doug bring up this question, Travis raises it again. Is it legal? Can we move forward with these without some other type of can you just give some guidance
Sure.
about it?
Mr. Chairman, the short answer is yes, it's legal. How do we handle raises for supervisors? The provision is found in County Law 200.
Okay.
And what happens there is that the supervisors set their salaries, their compensation, and from time to time amend those, that compensation. As long as it's reflected in the tentative budget, that's what you're voting on, it's completely permissible. With respect to the county administrator, unlike myself, is not an employee who has a set or defined term, and as a result, his compensation and any modifications to his compensation is handled through the budget process, the salary schedule, which is before you.
Thank you.
Anybody else wish to, Mr. Brock?
Yeah, excuse me. Last time on the tentative budget, I voted no because I hadn't been a part, I didn't know the budget. Over the past week, I've met with the Sheriff York, Jeff Tennyson of DPW, Maureen Schmidt of Social Services, and Pat Auer of Public Health, and those are the four biggest departments. Matt Simpson, Rachel Seaver, and Doug Beatty and I met with different ones, and they were very informative. We learned a lot, and it really made me feel more comfortable with the budget. I understand next year the department heads or the people in the committees will be able to meet with the department heads, which would be a good thing. And so today I'll be able to vote yes on it because I feel now that I've done my due diligence, and I want to thank the department heads for putting up with us. They were very informative. We met for quite a long while with each one. We asked a lot of questions, and we learned quite a bit, and that's it.
Thank you. Anybody else? Supervisor Wood?
Yeah, I'm kind of regretful to do this, but I think I feel like, for my own conscience, I have to. I'd like to make a motion that we amend the 2015 tentative budget to reduce the increase to the county administrator's salary to just simply a 2% increase. And I'd ask that, if I have a second, would be a roll call vote.
Yes, at resolution time, right? We have to waive the rules to do that. Right. Yeah, that would have to be done when we do resolutions.
That's fine.
We need a motion to waive the rules to do that, so.
not really a budget comment. I'm happy with the budget. I think that it's well put together. There's probably a few things in there that you don't like, but I do support the budget. What I'd like to talk about is the salary increase for the Board of Supervisors. I would just like the public to be aware of what has actually happened. I've been on this board for, can you hear me?
Yeah, somebody has a cell phone laid down, it's
Near the microphone.
humming on the table.
It's not a cell phone, there's something buzzing over. I think it's Gene.
I'm buzzing, I'm steaming, I'm not
Been known
buzzing.
to blow before.
Go ahead.
That's steam.
What I was gonna say is, I've been on this board for 7 years now. The only salary action that we've taken, this board has taken in that period of time, is a reduction in our salary of 5%. I could care less if we get an increase or not, but I just don't think it's a big deal with me.
Okay.
That was Ron.
Anybody else wish to, Supervisor Dixon?
I was involved in the budget process. I attended a number of meetings outside of my committee meetings. I would just like to thank Frank Thomas for his diligent, hard work, the amount of time he spent. I would like to thank the department heads for their cooperation throughout the budget process. This is a culmination of a lot of work, so not having a lot of comments is a reflection of the good job that we've done, valid comments. I look forward to voting for the budget. I think it's good for the county, and I intend to vote yes.
Supervisor Merlino.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I too want to thank Frank and all the people that worked on this budget. We all have something here or there that we don't like in the budget, but as a whole, I also will be voting yes, but I have one comment in regards to Mr. Westcott said, you know, any supervisor has anything, bring it up. And I'm going to bring up something now that I think this whole board should really pay some due diligence to. There's a resolution 670 from 2002. And I got information here if anybody wants me to make copies of it. It's a resolution that was proposed that the county take 2% of the county sales tax and issue it to Glens Falls to help subsidize the sewage removal from Queensbury to Glens Falls sewer treatment plant. Now, you all know for over a year I've been trying to get sales tax redistributed and helped out some of us little towns, and I've been pretty much called stupid, ridiculous, absurd. But this here, I was informed by a taxpayer of Queensbury, and I did do some investigation for a couple of months on this. And this resolution that went to the state, the contract, and I read it 3 times, didn't specify what Glens Falls had to use the money for. But with all the meetings that went on for a year, there was a lot of dissent, there was a lot of people that wanted it, a lot of people, supervisors I'm talking, that didn't, including the ex-supervisor of Lake Luzerne had voted against it and told the committee that it would hurt the smaller towns down the road. And I believe it's doing that right now. Over the years, that 2%, which is the same objection I have with the 2%, with the way the county distributes sales tax by the wealth of your town. Some towns, the wealth keeps going higher, and the more sales tax they get, the smaller towns, the wealth goes lower, and the less we're getting. Well, over the last 11 years that this has been, it's a 30-year contract, that it's been in effect, after the end of 2014, we will have already given Glens Falls $6 million of our sales tax revenue to cover the sewage problem that Queensbury had. Now, back then, I will say probably it was done to help Queensbury out because they were struggling, and we had $22, $23 million surplus. But this is a 30-year contract, We got 19 more years to go, and I think this has to be looked at, and I think it has to be rescinded. And I think that the people that live in Queensbury, that use the sewer system, should be paying for this, not my taxpayers in Lake Luzerne, or Stony Creek, or Thurman, all around this county. You're talking $1 million, $500,000 a year now for the rest of this time that this money is going to go there. And with all the, some of the supervisors think about money that we're being spent, this $500,000 goes back in the county treasury to help reduce the budget of all the taxpayers of Warren County, or help fund, which everybody says we need more roads, we have to fix this. I think this is such an important issue that has been brought to my attention, and I'm really disturbed with it, and I think in the next couple of weeks, every supervisor should read this resolution, read the contract, and by the end of next month at our meeting, rescind it. Thank you.
Supervisor Beatty?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I applaud Jim Brock. Some of us newer supervisors didn't know the process, weren't involved with the process as much as we would have liked, and Jim took it upon himself to say, hey, let's meet with the 4 biggest department chairmans, if they will, which was, he mentioned earlier, and Rachel and Matt Simpson met with us, and we learned a ton, at least I did personally, in the last 4 days about each department's budget. I won't go into detail on the positives or negatives. I'd like to see zero-based budgeting done here up at the county. I know we don't do it. I'd like to see an actual cost per each line item in a 4-year history so we can make more intelligent decisions. But that's another discussion. Hopefully we'll be able to push that for next year. I'm not going to vote for this budget, and there's a couple of main reasons. Supervisor Westcott mentioned how we're going to be spending nearly $1 million for the airport. We've got $350,000 for the roads. I was blown away when Mr. Tennyson told me. I wrote down the numbers. He gave me a chart. So we're going to give the roads $350,000 county roads, yet we're going to spend about $1 million for the county airport. Now, I'm not the smartest guy in the room, but I must be missing something, because out of 64,000 residents, I'd say about 63,999 use the county roads. I'm a full supporter of the airport, but I'm not. To me, this is upside down. This is simply upside down, and I can't support a budget that is that upside down on some key issues. And the final point, and I've got other items, but I'm not going to go into them, is I can't support a 6.5% raise for our highest employee in the county. Although I think he does a good job in a number of areas, I think it sends a very poor message to all the other county employees. And a 6.5% raise for our county administrator is simply out of line. So for those 2 main reasons, there are others, though, I can't support today's budget. Thank you.
Supervisor Simpson?
I'd just like to say that, that funding for the roads is not accounting for the CHIPS funding that we get.
Yeah, I'm totally aware of that. Thanks, Matt.
Supervisor Kenny?
Yeah, regarding Supervisor Merlino's comments, I don't know where he wants to go with this. Rescinding the resolution is not going to do any good, because you got a contract with the city of Glens Falls. And unless you can get them back to the table to rescind the contract, rescinding the resolution is not
My
going to
thing
do
is
any
that the
good.
Queensbury residents have to redo the contract and pay their fair share of that sewage that leaves Queensbury to Glens Falls. I understand what you're saying, but this here was passed way back in 2002, and for all these years, we've been picking up $500,000, has nothing to do with Glens Falls, $500,000 of the expense of the sewage that is generated in Queensbury and shipped over to Glens Falls. And I think something has to be done about it. You'll get your same money, but the Queensbury taxpayers should be, they get $9 million in sales tax revenue. They do have all the stores, and they have everything here. They have a zero-stress budget, which was in the paper a couple of weeks ago. They have a 61-cent town tax. My town has a $3.80 town tax, so some of that money could help my town too. So I think the contract has to be redone. That's what I'm saying.
Supervisor Stroud.
Just a couple of things. One is we already do pay for it. About 70% of the sales tax generated that this county enjoys probably comes from the town of Queensbury. So we do pay for it already. We have a lot of expenses that are associated with developing that sales tax revenue that everybody enjoys. And I don't see Lake Luzerne contributing much to that. In any event, I also want to point out another point of misinformation. The airport does not cost $800,000. What you budget and the cost may be two different things. The actual cost of the airport was around $700,000. And I know that other people are going to maybe make comparisons of Glens Falls Airport to other airports. It's just not fair because they use different accounting procedures than we do. And that's all I need to say.
Okay, just before we move on, anybody from the public, because in the first public hearing on the Civic Center funding, it is included in the budget, so anybody who wish to address us on the funding, the Oxy-Tax funding moving forward, please come up. I don't want to shortchange or not give you an opportunity to speak.
Thank you. My name is Frank Dietrich, Lake George. As I said in an earlier session, I've been asked by a number of hoteliers to represent their perspective, specifically around the occupancy tax. If I could again ask that group to stand. This is a group that started to meet a couple of weeks ago, and our emphasis here is really, there's a keen interest and support by this group towards the common goal of making Warren County stronger. And obviously that also includes the Civic Center as a part of that. Our focus is on tourism on a broad basis. It's not singularly focused on the Civic Center by any stretch, but rather it's what can we do as a community to try to bring more tourists to this area such that every community benefits from it. From your meeting on November 4th, David Kenny spoke about a number of items that I think we need to be considering going forward. He talked about the needs of the millennium, and a lot of this pivots around change. Many of the items and activities that we support in this community are really focused on people our age, when you think about how those activities tend to bring folks into the community. The goal of what do we do to bring people in that are in their 20s and 30s that are going to make a lifetime decision to continue to come here, we believe is especially important. Tourism professionals in the community and the sessions that we've had are absolutely passionate about playing an active role in helping shape those directions in terms of areas of focus, what can we be doing differently, and again, I think the opportunity to work more closely together between the tourism community and groups like this, of course, is something we should continue to pursue. Laura Coles brought up in the meeting on November 4th the issue of transparency. In that meeting, there was very positive conversations around the occupancy tax and where that money goes. It was an active discussion. We touched on it in an earlier session today. That's something that we should continue to push forward in the eyes of the hoteliers that met over the last couple of weeks. As a group, we can really summarize our thoughts and recommendations into 4 main points. The first one is we believe we need to get some external expertise into the area in the form of a consulting firm to help evaluate and report on what are the trends and directions with respect to tourism. There's a lot of opportunity to learn here, to bring in folks that understand what's going on in terms of tourism development, but also the execution of it. How do you drive these ideas forward to something that in fact leads towards more people in our community, and specific to the occupancy tax, of course, the heads and beds counts that we've talked about. We can use this report to further shape our direction going forward, which does in fact say we should probably be thinking about what are we changing. There's been discussions about changing the accounting practice to make it consistent. I think that resonates with the hotelier group. But when we think about change in a bigger way, that's one of the areas of emphasis for this group, and a consulting firm can help us with that. In the past, we had a Tourism Promotion Citizens Advisory Committee at the TPCAC. It was in place for a period of time and then disbanded for reasons that I'm not sure. I think I did read some information that there was fundamentally a lack of interest. Based on the hoteliers that have been meeting, I can assure you that there's a renewal and a revitalization and active participation to try to bring the activities together for the professionals in this area that work on bringing people into this town to sleep, into these communities to sleep, independent of an occupancy tax, quite candidly, tax. So there's plenty of activities amongst these hoteliers that we can draw upon, taking advantage of that expertise through the form of the TPCAC. As I said before, continuing to improve on the transparency of the process, specifically what's the accounting for heads and beds as we look at any given activity that the occupancy tax would go to support. And lastly, we would like to request to meet at the committee's pleasure to continue the discussion on this topic. I can tell you as a fairly new participant to sessions like this, it's pretty exciting for me to see the level of interest, in particular amongst the hoteliers in this community, to try to drive Warren County and the surrounding areas forward in a meaningful way. Changes that have to occur, the group is absolutely passionate about being involved in. And again, we thank you for the time to meet with you today.
Thank you. Supervisor Merlino.
Just so you know, I'm chairman of the Warren County Tourism Department. I've been for a couple of years now. I will gladly meet with your group at any time you see fit. We'll get with Kate Johnson, and if you guys, have some ideas and maybe start coming to our meetings. I mean, we have very knowledgeable people in the tourism department. We're doing a lot with internet and YouTube, and it's way over my head, but they're doing it down there, and I think you'd be a little bit more on the side of what we're really doing. So anytime you'd like to give me a holler.
Any other comments on the budget, because we need to get back to the budget? Any other comments on the budget? Okay, a little housekeeping. Yeah, Mr. Salvador, you want to speak?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. With respect to Mr. Merlino's issue of the contract that the county has entered into with...
Well, is this budget? Is this on the budget hearing?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I'm referring to Mr. Merlino's comments pertaining to that contract and how it affects this budget.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. I'm somewhat familiar with this contract. It's a contract that lacks specificity on the part of one of the parties, and in my understanding of contract law, that's an illegal document. And particularly for a municipal entity to use taxpayers' money to pay another municipality and no provision for oversight of those funds over the years is improper. It's a violation of state finance laws and local finance laws. So the contract itself is not a legal document, in my estimation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Salvador. Okay, anybody wish to comment on the first public hearing on the sewer district? Okay, I'll declare that public hearing closed. Anybody wish to comment any more on the budget, the 2015 budget? No, I'll close that public hearing. Now we have another public hearing on proposed local law number 6 for the year 2014 entitled Warren County Ethics and Disclosure Law, and request the clerk to read the notice of the public hearing.
Notice is hereby given that the Board of Supervisors of the County of Warren, New York is considering the adoption of a proposed local law number 6 for the year 2014 entitled Warren County Ethics and Disclosure Law. The purpose of the local law is to establish and codify ethics and disclosure requirements for Warren County in accordance with the provisions of Article 18 of the General Municipal Law. If adopted, local law number 6 of 2014 would repeal, replace, and supersede the Warren County Code of Ethics, which was adopted on December 14, 1990. Local law number 6 of 2014, as proposed, establishes ethical principles and standards to be followed by certain covered persons, including Warren County's elected and appointed officials, its officers, and certain employees in policy-making positions or who have discretionary authority. The local law requires the disclosure of interest, which means anything of an indirect or direct financial or material benefit to such covered persons, but is more particularly defined in the local law. The local law requires such covered persons to file annual written disclosure statements. The local law also addresses private employment in conflict with official duties and requires the filing of an outside interest form in the event an officer or employee or immediate family member is currently or plans to be in the future employee, board member, consultant, owner, contractor, or a passive investor of an entity that engages in any business or maintains any relationship with Warren County, provides to or receives from Warren County any client referrals or competes with Warren County. A 3-member Board of Ethics is established. Members of the Board of Ethics are appointed by the Board of Supervisors. The Board of Ethics is empowered to establish rules and regulations which govern the conduct of its proceedings. Other provisions address such issues as gifts prescribed by Article 18 of the General Municipal Law, political solicitations, and interest in contracts. Notice is further given that pursuant to Resolution Number 499 of 2014, adopted by the Board of Supervisors on October 17, 2014, a public hearing will be held by the Board of Supervisors at the Supervisors' Rooms in the Warren County Municipal Center, 1340 State Route 9, Queensbury, New York, on November 21, 2014, at 10 a.m., at which time and place all persons interested in the matter of such proposed local law number 6 for the year 2014 will be heard concerning the same. A copy of said local law is available for inspection during regular business hours by contacting the Clerk of the Board of Supervisors at the above stated address, and may be viewed on the Warren County website by order of the Board of Supervisors.
Okay, anybody wish to address the board on the ethics law? County Attorney?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. Supervisors, this morning I handed out, should be on your desks, a copy of the local law. I have 3 minor technical, non-substantive changes that I would like you to consider. I came up with these as I was reading the law and preparing for the public hearing. It's completely appropriate for you to consider these changes at this time and to move forward today, should you decide to do that. The changes, the first one that I'd like to point out appears in Section 7, little c, 2. What I discovered there was, you'll see the reference to Section 20 of the Civil Service Law. What I discovered there was that the reference in the local law as originally drafted was simply to the County Civil Service Commission. But we don't have a County Civil Service Commission. We could, but we don't. We have a personnel officer. Section 20 gives the same authority to the County Civil Service Commission as it does to the personnel officer. So I added personnel officer there. Again, minor, technical, non-substantive change. The other change that I wanted to point out is in Section 20. That concerns the Board of Ethics. Under little a, under the appointing authority, you as the Board of Supervisors appoint the members of the Board of Ethics. The word "the" before Board of Supervisors was missing. I've added that. Schedule A, or Appendix A, is the list, the non-exhaustive list of individuals, employees, officials who must file annual disclosure statements under this law. As I wrote the law, I purposely stated that it is a representative list only. It is non-exhaustive. Because there are any number of employees or officials throughout the county who may need to file these annual disclosure forms that don't appear on the list. But missing from the list was airport manager. Clearly, that is an individual who must file an annual disclosure statement, so I added that as well. Finally, no change. This has been in the law for some time, but I wanted to let everybody know, if you couldn't get to the committee meeting when we discussed this, that Supervisor Stroud brought up a point about membership of the Board of Ethics, and I added at his request and reviewed with him 20B, which again is not new, but that's in there. A member of the Board of Ethics shall not be an official, officer, or committee person of a political party or hold any similar office or title in a political party. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other comments on the ethics law? Supervisor Monroe?
Just a question. I didn't have an opportunity to compare the disclosure form, the new one with the current one. Is it exactly the same, or is it?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Supervisor. It is precisely the same form. We've also added the private interest disclosure form. That's new, but the financial disclosure form is the same one that we've been using since 1990.
Anybody from the public wish to address the ethics Well, I'll declare that public hearing closed, and we'll move on to reports of office.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Can I make a quick comment? We breezed right by this. I would like to extend a special thanks to the hoteliers that have come today, both for their involvement and participation and in their organization. Having Mr. Dietrich speak on behalf of them made a very clear and concise argument on their behalf, and I would like to thank all of them for their time and effort.
Thank you.
And I'd also like to point out that my office is open at any time for any of them.
Thank you.
Except Dave.
All right, I'll start off with my report for the month. October 21st, I attended a Budget Committee meeting. 22nd, I attended Public Works Committee meeting. On the 23rd, I attended Inter-County Legislative Committee meeting in Clinton County. On the 27th, I attended Human Services, Public Safety, Personnel Committee meetings. 28th, I was at Real Property Tax, County Facilities Committee meetings, and also I attended a meeting with the courts, and some of the judges were in attendance. On the 29th, I attended Park Operations, Joint County Facilities, Economic Growth, and LDC Committee meetings. On the 30th, I attended APA Local Government meeting in Indian Lake. On November 6th, I attended a County Facilities meeting. On the 7th, I attended a Criminal Justice Committee meeting and a special meeting of the Board of Supervisors. Also attended the Warren Tobacco Asset Securitization Corporation meeting. On the 12th, I attended Personnel Finance Committee meeting, attended the annual civil service training at oh, that was last month. I didn't check that out. On the 17th, I attended Traffic Safety Committee meeting. On the November 18th, I attended the Civic Center Coalition meeting members with some members of the coalition here at the County Center. On the 20th, I attended the Inter-County Legislative meeting in Warren County, which we held yesterday, and toured Davidson Brothers, and I must say everybody behaved over there with their samples. On the 21st, we're here at the Board of Supervisors. So we'll move right along to committee reports by chairman, and we'll start off with Supervisor Thomas, if I get this right.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to start off with, first, there's a couple of resolutions in the packet that pertain back to soil and water. They came through the DPW committee with Mr. Molino, and they have to do with amending the stormwater management program, of which the director of the Soil and Water Conservation District is the person for the county that carries out that function. So there's some minor technical amendments to the actual program plan itself. And the second one, 523, is extending insurance coverage and indemnification to Mr. Lieberman and to anyone that's carrying out his functions as to his stormwater management. This just because it is more of an enforcement. There's illicit discharges and dumps, and it can get it could get a little testy. So he should be entitled to the same coverage as every other county employee. Other than that, that's the two resolutions to do with soil and water. I appreciate everyone being here for the public hearing on the budget. I wish you'd have been here last Friday on the presentation. I thought I had a pretty good message. As far as some of the comments, I mean, you know, like I said before, not everybody's going to like everything that's in this budget. It's a large budget. I appreciate Supervisor Brock for following through and doing his due diligence. And next year we'll try to accommodate you a little better. As far as the roads, we spent $3 million this year. We budgeted $350,000 above CHIPS, which brought it to $2 million in 2014, and we took $1 million out of our piggy bank, and we applied it to the roads. Are we going to be able to do that next year? Probably not, because you know, there was that little thing there of $1.4 million of 23 new employees that we had to provide for the county. So, no, we're probably not going to be able to do that. As far as the airport, I mean, I continually hear this $1 million or over $1 million, and I happen to have a little information here about the airport. And, as far as expenses, including the capital cost of the hangars over the years. Going back to 2006 up through 2015, and the highest year there was $983,000, but that also included another thing that should have been put into a capital expense. But it goes from a low end of 778, and most of them are around 8 and a quarter, you know. So, I mean, you're entitled to your opinion. That's all well and fine. You're not entitled to your own facts. As far as the salary adjustment for the county administrator, the guy come in here, you know, he was our county attorney, and he took on the job when it was at a difficult time, when the sales tax, the bottom fell right out of it. He agreed to work for a certain sum for 3 years, and he did that, and I think he's done a very good job, and now he's asked for a raise. As budget officer, I agreed to that raise. If you want to start talking percentages, you need to look at the salary sheet a little closer, because he is far from being the highest salary adjustment on that salary sheet. And that's as far as I'll go with that. I don't want to throw any other employees under the bus. I think they deserve it, but you know, we have to be a little bit realistic here. And you know, you can't pick out one and criticize one unless you want to apply it right up the line. So at least that's my opinion. As far as spending 3.6 of the fund balance, yeah, it is too high. I agree. But we should consider ourselves very fortunate that we have that 3.6, because if we didn't have it, the tax increase would be 10, 15%. So, you know, I know at the presentation, you wanted to give it all back. You know, you wanted to, I guess, do an Andy Cuomo and cut a check and return it to everybody, and that's admirable. It sounds good in the press, but when you're doing budgets, and if you don't have money set aside, and it's all tax money, I understand that. Every bit of it's tax money. If you don't have that money set aside, you're going to whipsaw the taxpayers, because one year you're going to have 0, and the next year you're going to have 20%. So, you know, you can vote to give it back if you'd like, but I don't think I'll be following that advice. And other than that, oh, and the raises for the supervisors, again, as budget officer, that was my call. And I put that 2% in there because it's my feeling that if every county employee, a union, non-union, and everybody is going to get a 2% raise, you know, what goes around, everybody should get, as far as I'm concerned. So, with that, that's my report.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. Ms. Wood?
Yep, Public Safety met October 27th. It was a fairly brief meeting. We had one resolution, 529, to accept some grant funding. I want to take a minute as well to recognize Cornell. They had 4-H Achievement Night last Friday. I know Supervisor Simpson was there as well. They did a fabulous job, and it was a nice evening for the kids, and I wanted to thank them for that. I also wanted to mention that last Friday, the Employees Association here, the employees really turned out, and I just want to take a minute to commend them. We had, I think, at least 50, probably more than 50, show up. They did a bowling event and some basket raffles that raises money for the Operation Christmas Child, or whatever the technical name is for that. They do it every year, but this year the employees really turned out. Everybody had a great time. They seemed happy, lots of kids enjoying the bowling alley. But there was quite a substantial sum of money raised by these employees. It's going to go forward to give some families a nice Christmas here in our county, and I just want to recognize them for that. I think that was a wonderful thing, and I just want to send out my thoughts to Dave Wick as well. I think many of us were extremely dismayed to learn this week about what's going on in regard to Dave. He's certainly gone above and beyond to work with the towns in the past, and certainly all the work he's done has been very ambitious and with the best interest of the lake in mind. So, my sympathy is with Dave, and I hope things work out positively for him.
Thank you. Supervisor Conover.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Finance met on November 12th, represented in your packets by resolutions 538 through 548, 551, 553, 555, 558, through 558. I'll draw your attention once again to the resolution regarding the budget and resolutions regarding OCTAX. But I'd like to take my few minutes here just to bring to your attention that in your packets, you will have a sheet that looks like this. There may not be a sheet you receive that has more important information, valuable information on the finances of this county and its municipalities than this sheet. So I'd ask you to take a look at this. It in one place tells you by municipality, based on assessed value, each municipality's share what ultimately becomes the property tax levy of this county. And it, now this share, if you compare this to previous years, you will note that each municipality's share changes from year to year. It changes based upon the growth of one's tax base. It changes based upon changes in a municipality's equalization rate. It also tells you the assessed value of each municipality and the taxable value of the county as a whole. So, and in addition to that, it also shows you year over year the change in the tax rate. What ultimately is calculated is the tax rate for each municipality. So I draw your attention to this sheet, make note of it, copy it, distribute it to your board. Very important piece of information, and I'd ask you all to look at it. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Supervisor Monroe?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Wood Park former Gaslight Village Committee met, Operations Maintenance Committee met on October 29th. There was a report on the ongoing construction, the footings been poured for the restroom building, the contract with BMJR companies coming in under budget, which there could be remaining funds to go to other contracts. There was a report from Mayor Blaze about the need for a perimeter fence. He has 14 events scheduled for next year, and virtually all of them want a perimeter fence. One event had to rent it at a cost of around $5,000. So that was originally part of the plans, but we took it out to stay with under budget. As the committee discussed it, I think it became clear that it's necessary to build a fence around the perimeter. The committee just looked at ways to pay for it. It looks like that the event fees, if it's bonded over a 5-year period, will not be enough to cover the bonding. So the committee recommended that there be separate bonding for the event, possibly paying those fees out of the occupancy tax because it does generate a lot of activity. And then that resolution was passed, recommended bonding, was referred to finance. Finance took another view of it, that the parking lot, Westbrook parking, is expected to generate about $80,000 this year. That's all been dedicated to the general fund, and I think the finance committee get that report. he already had the report.
No, we haven't received that report.
Yeah. No, but the discussion at the finance committee was to look at the paying for it out of the revenues from that parking lot, which I agree makes sense. And then we had a discussion further about those revenues. And actually, at the time that the DPW committee recommended all those revenues be generated to the general fund, I think the feeling of many on our committee was that it should be, a lot of that revenue comes from the activities and the events at the Wood Park. Should, at least some part of it should go to pay the expenses there. Then on real property tax services, we met on October 28th. There was the report on the tax foreclosure auction. There were parcels with outstanding taxes of $149,000. Proceeds of the auction were $659,000, so it was about $510,000 more than was owed on taxes that was received on that sale. We had a lengthy discussion about the tax foreclosure sale process and the changes that were made by the state legislature in 1995, which this board opposed at the time, where they went from allowing taxpayers to credit their payments to the oldest taxes first to requiring that they be paid to the newest taxes first, which puts considerable stress on property owners. And the other provision, which requires that if there's more than one parcel owed, that they all be included in one installment agreement. And actually, we had a situation this year where we had one property owner with five parcels was able to pay 3 of those. Fortunately for that taxpayer, there were separate agreements, and he was able to redeem 3 of them. But for anyone else that gets in that situation, if they have 5 parcels, they don't scrape together enough money to save 4 of them, they would have to lose all 5 of the parcels. So the committee recommended another resolution to the state legislature to consider changes in that law to help protect what we think is a higher value, which is keeping people in their properties. Then there was a report by the county attorney on a request from Wayne County, where there's a taxpayer in Wayne County who went through a foreclosure process and then filed a proceeding in bankruptcy, and a bankruptcy court there in Wayne County ruled that tax sale was a fraudulent transfer. Maybe I should let the county attorney comment on that more appropriate. And so they've asked for help from other counties to fund their appeal of that lawsuit.
Yep. Mr. Chairman, I would just add that it is a request by NISAC and Wayne County. It's the resolution as proposed would offer $2,000 to NISAC, which would help them with their legal fees in Wayne County, essentially fight this battle, which is currently pending in the Western District of New York Bankruptcy Court. We think it's a good idea because we think an adverse outcome there will have, could have dire consequences for us here.
And so the committee supported transfer of $2,000 to NISAC to be used for that one.
Thank you. Supervisor Dreher.
We have resolution 521, and that would be authorized Department of Public Works proposed action plan to allow FOP access to Warren County Business Center. And that would be also coming from Edom, presentation previously years ago. That's in the works. We also had facilities had 3 different meetings, October 28th, October 29th, joint meeting with Economic Growth Development, and also on the 6th. Quickly on the 29th, Economic Growth. On October 29th, 29th, the joint meeting, that facilitated the airport presentation by a committee that we set up, the subcommittee, and they did a report on their findings to date. It was very informational. They're doing great work. I think they have another 6-7 months that they're until they sunset, or we give them new challenges, et cetera. But we appreciate the work they've put into it, the reports that are coming forward, and I think it's all healthy, and we're making some significant progress with it. And then very importantly, we have the courts, which in the previous monthly meeting, we had decided to keep the courts on site and also keep the courts together, specifically family and Supreme Court. Those are two major decisions which helped with a needs assessment, which Clark Patterson did. And then we had, on the 28th, we had some input from the supervisors who would like to see the present facility renovated and possibly lowering the cost as far as an addition. And Clark Patterson proceeded to give us 3 different options, and we had a meeting November 6th on that. After the 28th meeting, we met with Judge Kokoma and Caruso. They explained the issues that they're facing with 25 new judges being appointed in the state. They certainly have concerns that the accommodations are met for those judges in a timely fashion. They expressed that some of the information they were getting had concerned them as far as how we were proceeding. I thought we had an enlightening and very deliberate conversation. When they left, they liked the way we were proceeding, and they said that they certainly would be watching and be helpful in any form or manner. We have Judge Caruso here today, and I thank him for that. But I think we are making progress. The options were presented, the questions were asked, and option 1 was selected, and that is what is before us today. And then we have resolutions that went on to finance, which are 544, 545, 546. And those are going to, 546 specifically authorizes a needs assessment, which really gives us the criteria to go to planning in the next phases that we're going to do. And then 44 and 45 are allocating funding so that we can pay Clark Patterson for those endeavors. On the Cornell Cooperative, we met through the budget process. There was a good thing, I think, that is going to come to fruition here, where WIC is joining forces with them. They have a lot of parallels. There's other Cornell cooperatives that are doing it. We think it's a good match. It's healthy for, I think, the women's infants and children that are going to be served, and the professionality of Dr. Seeley stepping to the plate, and Pat Auer with her suggestions, and everyone's meeting. I think that's going to be very productive. And we're still working on the solar, and I think we'll have a report Monday at the Cornell meeting as far as where we're at and how we're proceeding that through our engineer, Jeff Tennyson.
Okay. On the court system, on the resolution on the court system, are there any supervisors that have any questions about the vote on the court system today? We have the judges here. Now would be a good time if you have any questions for the judges that we could answer them. I know there was 12 supervisors at the committee meeting, and they all were in favor of the plan being put forth, the 12. But is there anybody else that has any questions about the court system that you wish to address to the judges while they're here? None? Judges, do you have anything you want to say to the board?
I'll just be very, very brief, but thank you for the opportunity of the floor, Mr. Chairman. I'm Judge Krogman, Supreme Court Judge, and once again with us this morning is Judge Michael Kokoma, who is seated right 3 to my left, the Assistant Chief Administrative Judge of all the courts in the state outside of the city of New York. And I think his presence here today underscores the interest in what is occurring in Warren County, and we're here to observe and to answer any questions that you might have as you further deliberate on this subject. And the Chief Administrative Judge of the 4th District, Judge Vito Caruso, is also here for the same reason. So we're just here to answer any questions. Thank you.
Okay. Are there any questions? Anybody? Sir, you want to get up and state your name for the record?
My name is Bob Sears. I'm a commercial real estate agent. I've been a commercial agent in the area for around 37 years. This is after the fact. I appreciate the avenue the supervisors are going down and the due diligence the judges have given the supervisors. I just want to add a couple of things. The project cost around $16 million, at least that's what I've been reading in the paper, to do this project. Going off campus for 52,000 square feet, that would be relocating all the law offices. You're looking at a cost of around $9,360,000. That's over a period of 20 years. Okay, that's face value. Now I know that's looking at a lease rate of $9 a square foot, which you can get at Apollo Drive, where National Grid is. Now that's just one example of what might happen if you went off campus. If you look at that figure, for the cost analysis for financing that $16 million, I don't know if your analysis is correct. You've been challenged a few times today on other matters. Okay, but from what I read, it's 1.1 million. It would be $468,000 a year to go off campus with 53,000 square feet. Now, obviously, there's added cost to that, but there's also added cost to the other avenue you're approaching. You're not going off campus at $9 a square foot. You wouldn't have to worry about snow plowing. All the parking would be plowed. You wouldn't have to worry about groundskeeping. You wouldn't have to worry about all the associated things for upkeeping the building. It would be done. What you would be worrying about is janitorial inside your space and utilities. Okay? So I just want to throw that out there. I know you've been at this. I know you've worked hard. But when you consider other space for government purposes, I think you ought to go out with an RFP to the private sector, because the private sector can be much more competitive. And keep in mind one other thing. This was for 53,000 square feet. I think you're looking at an improvement of, what, 20,000 to 25,000 square feet? So this cost ratio would be less.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
And thank you very much.
Okay. Supervisor McDevitt.
Thank you. Just attended a
Oh, we
luncheon.
have another one? Sure. Real quick, please.
I'd just like to follow on that. Actually, I think the supervisors were correct in deciding that the courts should remain on campus and all together. However, I think where they've erred is to not consider moving some other things off of campus, such as DMV, and then to utilize the open space, such as Mr. Sears just mentioned, for that, rather than building this $16 million project. That was considered very briefly, I think, by the supervisors. And at the time they did that, the analysis came out to be a wash, I was told, financially. But that was based on $17 a square foot and an assumption that $4 million worth of renovations would need to be done here. Subsequently, you did hear the value of $9 a square foot from Apollo Drive, and I think at least one other location had offered that. And it doesn't seem like the supervisors adequately considered those options. And so what we are going to do is, in an area that already has a glut of commercial real estate, we are going to build many more square feet here. What outraged me a little bit more was I noticed in May of this year, the minutes of one of the facilities meetings, there was a discussion there of trying to encourage some state agencies that presently occupy offices in the Northway Plaza to come over to utilize space that was claimed to be open, available, free, and that we could gain revenue from poaching these properties from taxpayers that run their own facilities, taxpayers like Mr. Sears, and bring them over here. So I didn't think that was quite appropriate, and I don't think that all of the options were looked at as closely as they should have been.
Thank you. Supervisor McDevitt.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Just attended a luncheon last Friday at the college. Sat with a group of students. The point of the luncheon was to try to stress the value of their foundation and aid to education. One other topic that I'd maybe just like to mention, Dave Ruiz has been in the press recently, and I would just like to briefly give you two very specific and concrete examples where I've been involved with Dave. Approximately 10 years ago, in Coles Woods, there was a major malfunction of one of our water tanks. Occurred on a Saturday, and thousands upon thousands of gallons spewed from one of our water tanks and created very significant damage to Coles Woods, which is a jewel of a piece of real estate and is used by many people in our region. The DEC was involved. I was called by a constituent who happened to be walking on the trails that day. It was a Saturday. I got in my car and I thought I was looking at a combat zone. Very significant damage. DEC was involved, potential fines to the city, rules, regulations, and Dave's response to this specific event over time could not have been more positive. So that's one example. A second example was probably 3 or 4 years ago, walking the trails with my dog, come to an outlet, and there was a point on the trail where there was, it was just water was just assembling. There was blockage somewhere. The water would get larger and larger, and you'd walk on it, and your feet would get wet. And coincidentally, I come to the end of the trail, and there's Wick with Kevin O'Brien, and basically they were out doing some scouting work on a portion of the trails. I mentioned it to Wick, and I said, Dave, do you think it's possible that there are beavers on the trail? And he said, oh, no, I don't think so, Peter, not there. So he said, let me go down and look at it. He comes down, he looks at it. He says, I can't believe it. We have a beaver problem there. Again, he said, I will take care of it. Within a week, the problem was resolved. Okay, so I think sometimes we view his responsibilities as being kind of where the city doesn't get value out of it. And my point is, could not have dealt with a human being that was more professional, more knowledgeable, and more attentive to our needs. Just wanted to put that on the record. Thank you.
Supervisor Taylor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Support Services held their meeting on November 7th. And on today's agenda, we have Resolution 517, ratifying the actions of the chairman and executing agreements with Technical Building Services. And this is to replace an HVAC controller in the sheriff's office. It's a single source provider, and the cost is about $10,500. That money is supposed to come from computer reserves. Personnel held their meeting on the 12th, and on today's agenda there's resolutions 530 through 534 having to do with filling positions. 535 is authorizing the extension of a provision in the CSEA agreement allowing employees to use compensatory time off in lieu of payment of overtime in excess of 8 hours a day. 536 is extending a supplemental agreement to the collective bargaining agreement to provide for participation in Tri-County Foods Co-op by the Health Services Department employees. 537 is extending the agreement between Warren County, acting on behalf of Warren County Wellness Committee and Juniper Hill Farm to allow Warren County employees to participate in a farm-to-desk program. And 550 is the The other thing I'd like to mention is that as chairman of Warren Washington Civic Development Corporation, we held a public hearing on the 17th in the town of Queensbury for the new Hudson Headwaters building, which will be in Cary Park. It's a 28,600 square foot building. It's adjacent to the existing building. It's about twice the size of the existing building. It's a $7.1 million project, and CDC will be issuing tax-exempt bonds for that. And I also attended yesterday a groundbreaking ceremony for that project. So it's going to mean a lot of jobs for people in the area. I don't know if we'll have any heads and beds, but it is a good project. And since everybody wants to talk about the airport, I just will.
Not everybody.
Talk about the train. All right. Incorrect. But there's an argument that's made a lot of the time that, not everyone uses the airport. And I really think that's a weak argument. I sat down the other day and I just came up with a list of things that not everyone uses. We could do without it, no doubt about it. In Glens Falls, we've got Crandall Park. We don't really need Crandall Park. We can put a development in there. Haviland's Cove, East Field, Glens Falls City Park, Glens Falls Civic Center, Crandall Library, Coles Woods Ski Trail, and Glens Falls Farmers Market. These are all sponsored by the government. But not everyone uses them. I don't use every one of these things. If you move to Queensbury, you got the Meadowbrook Reserve, Gurney Lane Recreational Area, Hovey Pond Park, Hudson Point Reserve, Hudson River Park, Jenkinsville Athletic Field, West End Park, Glen Lake Canoe Launch, Warren County Bike Path, and SUNY Adirondack. We don't need any of those things. We can get along without them. In Lake George, we've got the Wood Festival Space, Shepherd's Park, $1 Million Beach, the Boat Launch, Battleground Park, Hearthstone Park, Prospect Mountain Highway. Again, we don't need them. But what kind of a community would we be living in if we didn't have those things? They add to the quality of life, and I think they're well worth every penny that we pay for them. You're not hearing any of this?
We heard it all. You start over, bud. Start with, thank you, Mr. Chairman, I'm done.
Some of your colleagues have to leave at noon, Bud, so.
All right, I quit.
Mr. Brock?
You forgot to add the Board of Supervisors.
Yeah, we don't need
I just want to add to my comments that I want to thank Frank Thomas for his work on the budget, and I also want to make sure no one thinks that anything I said last week or this week was a criticism of him. It was just one of those things where we need to straighten things out so we can, the new supervisors and so on, can get to see the department heads, but it wasn't a criticism of you or anything. Okay? No problem. That's it.
Mr. Kenny?
Yeah, we need Haviland's Cove because it's in Ward 5. We had an occupancy tax meeting on November 12th that lasted 2 hours, and before I get into it, I would like to thank Supervisor Conover for his tremendous dedication, tremendous work on the occupancy tax law and reviewing it with the administrator and coming up with his new formula. It was extremely complex, and he made it sound simple, and I appreciate it. At the meeting, I advised, or the treasurer advised us the occupancy tax was up 2.82% compared to the same period in 2013, but that's a moving target. Top 5 events as results of an occupancy tax survey were Americade, Adirondack National Car Show, Hudson Valley Firemen's Convention, Adirondack Balloon Festival, and the world's largest garage sale. And that's just a tool we use to evaluate. We covered the fencing for the Wood Park issue, and I believe, Fred, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe that the final say on that was we're going to use the Westbrook parking funds?
Yeah, I think that was the conclusion, but that still will have to go to DPW and finance.
Okay. Okay. We discussed the change in methodology of the accounting procedures for the occupancy tax spending plan, and was considerable discussion on that. And we passed that in committee, the occupancy tax changes, and I didn't get a chance to go through this before the meeting, so and I guess that's it. And we had a meeting today that lasted an hour, and I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the public for giving up their valuable time to come to the meeting. It's very important to hear your input, and it was well received, I assure you. But at the meeting today, we discussed the tentative funding of the Civic Center, $250,000 a year for 3 years. And we briefly touched on the contract that was going to be offered to the coalition, and subject to refining that contract, we approved the $250,000 a year for 3 years. That's it.
Thank you. Supervisor Frazier.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Human Services met on October the 27th. It was a very brief meeting. There were 2 resolutions as a result, 518 and 519, agreement with pest control for the meal sites, and that was all that took place.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Supervisor Simpson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. No report.
Supervisor Vansel.
No report.
Supervisor Dickinson.
Good news and bad news. We didn't have any invasive species meeting this month. We will have one next month on December 10th. We're going to have Dave Decker there. He is the primary contact on the $100,000 grant that we got. We'll have him there to explain to us where we are and what's going on with it. If you're interested in all that, you should really stop in. He's a very difficult guy to get a hold of. Criminal Justice met without me. Apparently had something better to do that day. I want to thank Vice Chairman Kenny for sitting in my absence, and I will now plagiarize my report. We had actually 2 actions, both of them involved Ms. Hogan. She wanted to fill the 5th Assistant District Attorney position with an annual salary of $49,726, be effective November 14th, and be able to fill any vacancies resulting from promotion. And as a consequence of that, she wants to amend the organization to create and fill a full-time position of temporary Assistant District Attorney, annual salary $46,588 for a time period not to exceed 30 days, and it's for training purposes. The last thing she asked for was to amend Resolutions 493 and 494 of 2014 to specify an hourly pay rate of $24.81 for part-time investigator number 4. That's a position that's not to exceed 20 hours a week, and that's the sum total of my report. Thank you.
Supervisor Merlino.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Stop DWI met on 11/17. One resolution, 520. It's to authorize the agreement and the memorandum of understanding to various departments concerning DWI. Tourism also met October 30th. There's one resolution, and that's the for Keystone Press for the printing of whitewater rafting brochures for next year. Also under tourism, the 2015 county travel guide has been printed and delivered. Each supervisor has gotten a copy. Group tour planner has also been delivered and has been distributed. Revised TV commercials and videos will begin for the winter airing December 1st. And all printing for the winter electronic ads, and all are in process right now. DPW also met October 22nd. It's 5 resolutions, 522, 23, 24, 25, and 20. And I won't go over each one of them. You all know what they are because time is getting short. Thank you.
Supervisor Stroud.
No committee reports, but I do want to thank Budget Committee Chairman Thomas for his work on the budget, and I want to second my fellow supervisor's support for Commissioner Dave Wick.
Supervisor, I will say Dave did not get terminated today. His paid leave was extended by the state. That just came over the Post-Star website, so that's good news for us. Maybe we can do something to help support him a little bit more. Supervisor Sieber.
I had the opportunity to attend a Veterans Day event over at the college with Supervisor Straub, and I also, which was a wonderful ceremony, rightfully so, recognizing our veterans. But I also wanted to highlight our inter-county meeting and thank Dennis Dickinson for such a wonderful ride in the trolley. For those of us that were able to corral about, how many, 10 counties maybe were here?
Yeah.
Onto the trolley. It seemed a little daunting at first. It was wonderful, very chilly. I think they forgot us at one point, but it was a great event, a great time and a bonding moment. So thanks for the use of the trolley.
You're more than welcome. Did she drive the trolley?
They would not let me drive. No.
She's here, isn't she?
No, I tried it. I asked, of course. I took a great picture, which I sent to you, by the way. But thank you.
Thank you. And that was her task, get everybody on the trolley, and she did. She accomplished it.
You should give me a few more tasks. I did pretty well. Got them all on it.
Supervisor Sokol.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We had a joint meeting, as Supervisor Gerard alluded to, with Health Services and Extension Services. It was a great meeting. It's been something that's been in the works for a while. Just to point out a couple of facts, there is a deadline of December 2nd. This is a 5-year contract. It is 100% reimbursable. And after talking to Pat Auer, the discussions that she had with Dr. Seeley went very smoothly. This is a much-needed program. And I think it's going to be a nice marriage, and it's going to be very seamless. So that was excellent. So we need your support on that. Health Services met again 2 days ago on the 19th. Most of the discussion was an executive session. Still moving forward with the sale of Westmount Health Facility. My understanding is that we will receive final contract documents a couple days before next Tuesday's meeting. We're meeting at 10 a.m. So this, hopefully this contract is the final contract, and we can go ahead with the sale. As we know, we only have funding through May of next year, so we definitely want to move this forward. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Beatty?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, just a few comments and so forth. On Veterans Day, we had a request that one of us go to the Glen and give a short speech, and I responded to that thinking that it would be just a few people sitting in a room and maybe 1 or 2 veterans. And to my surprise, there was over 50 veterans at the Glen, which I was very pleased to see. And I made sure my speech was short, Mr. Chairman, so I didn't bore anyone. But that was a moving experience for me to see so many veterans from so many different branches and to hear their stories. So I'd encourage anyone next year, if you get the invite, to maybe at least go or give a talk there, because it was a moving experience. Just a couple other comments. Resolution 547, if you could pull that up, Martin, I had one question. That was the $2,000 that we're requesting to assist Wayne County in their lawsuit. It's my understanding that lawsuit was, it's my understanding that the lawsuit was decided on appeal by the Supreme Court this summer. So it was already done. So I'm not sure why we need to give them money now. They've already won it. Wayne County won the, already won that. Maybe I'm wrong. Could you, Martin, am I correct on that, or is it?
That's news to me. And I think there was a report in the Post-Star just recently about the status of that lawsuit. I have had conversations with the Wayne County attorney within the last couple of weeks, left messages with NISAC. My understanding is that there are upwards of 15 or 20 counties who have agreed to contribute. This is pending in the bankruptcy court for the Western District of New York. My understanding is that they were concerned about an adverse outcome there, in other words, in favor of the taxpayer, adverse to Wayne County, and that they would be considering their options on appeal at that point. So I am not aware that this lawsuit has been resolved in favor of Wayne County. Mike Swan is shaking his head no. He hasn't, obviously, I won't speak for him, but it doesn't sound like he's heard anything to that effect either.
No, it's under appeal right now, in my understanding.
Okay, because the appellate division, the fourth appellate division, the link that I had was that they ruled in favor of Wayne County already this past summer. Now, there may be an appeal.
That's got to be a different lawsuit, because that wouldn't be pending in the appellate division for the fourth district. This is bankruptcy court, which would be a federal
Okay,
question.
that's good, thanks. Just one other comment on, I don't like to beat a dead horse, but the 6.5% raise, and again, nothing against his personal performance, but I'm just wondering how many residents of Warren County received a 6.5% raise this year. So, anyway, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor Westcott.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Social Services met. I was not able to be there. I was away on business, so Supervisor Wood filled in for me. Thank you. We have two resolutions for Countryside Pest Control and Fire Alarm contract extensions. That's it for Social Services, but I did want to just say that Maureen Schmidt is settling in as Commissioner. She's going to do a great job. We're going to be organizing a tour of Social Services for all the supervisors, and we'll be getting that notice out. So I'm hoping everybody can head over and meet the department heads and take a tour of Social Services. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Report by County Administrator.
No report, Mr. Chairman.
Report by County Attorney.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. Supervisors, following up on Supervisor Taylor's report concerning Resolution 548 of 2014, this is the resolution that concerns the county's approval of certain financial obligations of Warren Washington Civic Development Corporation to finance a Hudson Headwaters project at 161 Cary Road in Queensbury. I was asked as county attorney to opine on whether or not Warren County is obligated on this debt or is incurring any obligation. I've conducted some research. In the course of doing this, I've also conferred with the Washington County attorney. They are faced with the same resolution this morning as you are. I also had an opportunity to confer with counsel for the Civic Development Corp, who I might add was very, very cooperative in furnishing information and responses to my questions along the way. I can offer the following opinion at this point with respect to this resolution. This is not a debt of Warren County. We are not incurring any obligations. Any default on the obligation cannot be enforced against Warren County. The sole purpose of our approval, as stated in the resolution, is so interest on the obligations is excluded from federal income taxation. The resolution confirms this. I've also been provided with language that will appear in the bond in the indenture, which is a non-recourse language as it pertains to Warren County, and I've been assured that that language will appear in the closing documents once the closing takes place. So I can opine at this point that I have no problems with you moving forward with Resolution 548 of 2014. I wanted to also discuss, Mr. Chairman, Resolution 546 of 2014. This is the resolution that moves the forward the court project, court expansion project. In addition to moving forward with Concept 1, what this resolution does is it commences the process of review under the State Environmental Quality Review Act, SEQR. Why do we need to do that? Well, SEQR says that any time that an agency such as yourselves is faced with an action, and this is clearly an action, it's an unlisted action under SEQR, but it's clearly an action. Anytime you are faced with an action and you must make a discretionary decision, whether you're going to fund, approve, or undertake that action, you must consider seeker. And you must consider seeker as early in the action as possible. Now, you're not making any final decisions here today, and you're not even making any seeker decisions here today, any substantive seeker decisions. But what this resolution does is it establishes your status as lead agency for this action, and it declares the action as an unlisted action. It also authorizes the chairman to sign Part 1 of the full environmental assessment form, which was prepared by your engineers, Clark Patterson Lee. That's before you. It was handed out this morning. This is a very comprehensive but thorough snapshot, if you will, of the physical environmental setting right here where the project is going to take place, and also the regulatory setting, what approvals, if any, are required as we go forward. The resolution would authorize the chairman to sign this Part 1 and distribute thereafter Part 1 to any involved or interested agencies. It is not a final seeker determination. It is the commencement of the seeker process. So I just wanted to advise you of that. And then finally, Mr. Chairman, I wanted to just note with respect to Resolution 526, this is the resolution for the King School and the project that they have. Which approves the plans of the King School to construct a pedestrian railroad crossing area for students access to access their athletic fields. We're giving them a license or a use permit for that purpose, and I just wanted to point out that Attorney David Avigdor, I believe his client is here as well, from the King School, and just wanted to thank them for coming and for their support, and I look forward to working with you as we go forward on this process. Thank you, Mr. Ockerby.
Okay.
That's it, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Okay. Reading of communications.
Minutes from Warren, Washington County's IDA, Audit and Finance, Executive Park and Civic Development Corporation, monthly report from probation, Capital District off-track vetting, third quarter benefit distribution in the amount of $11,169, September and October surcharges in the amount of $5,300 and $5,225, and August 31, September 30 financial reports, Warren, Washington County's IDA and Civic Development Corporation proposed 2015 budgets, New York State Office of Parks, Recreation, and Historic Preservation advising of the nomination of the Queensbury Quaker Burying Grounds on the National and State Register of Historic Places.
Okay. We're going to turn to resolutions. Does anybody from the public wish to get up and speak on any resolutions? Please keep it brief because I'm going to lose some supervisors and I need them here for the votes.
Okay. Thank you. I'd like to speak actually on Resolution 551. There's a law fixing salaries of certain county officers and employees of Warren County. This is one of very few actions that you'll take this year that is subject to a permissive referendum. That is that the public can actually weigh in on your decision. And in this resolution, they mention Municipal Home Rule, Section 24, local laws subject to referendum on petition. Very few things are subject to referendum on petition. And also, referendum on petition is not an easy thing for the public either. You'd have to go out and get 1,000 signatures before you could even then try to present a petition to the clerk in order to get this reviewed by the public. So there's still a lot of things here, but of the very few things that are subject to referendum on petition, in the case of a county, I'm quoting Section 24, 2H, which is mentioned in your law. In the case of a county, increases the salary of an elective officer or an officer appointed for a fixed term during his term of office. And when you look at this, there's 16 names here, not names, but positions here that fall under this. A couple of them are because they're elected, like the county treasurer and the sheriff, and we get to weigh in on those salary increases if you go through this 1,000 signature petition, etc. The rest of them are appointed officials with fixed contracts, things like the superintendent of public works, the public defender, the county attorney, etc. Two classes of people missing here, in my opinion, are the elected officials yourself and also the county administrator. I believe it would be appropriate to have, for someone to ask to amend this, to put those two on here, and I think then it would be much clearer to the public. Now, I did have a very short discussion with the county attorney, and he mentioned that there is a contravening law, County Law 200, which evidently says that your salary increases don't need to be on here. Then again, you've got this law that says that they do. I don't think either one, I don't think it would be illegal to put your names on here as well, but I would defer to the county attorney on that. But you're asking for a $300 raise. I don't see that as unreasonable. I don't think most people would see that as unreasonable, but I think it would be unreasonable for you to go ahead and not put that up front to the people that elected you. And then I believe, I don't just understand what the difference would be in the particular contract that Mr. Dusick has compared to the other contracts, which would make him fall not under this. But that, again, would appear to me to be a place to have this on Resolution 551. And that's all I really have to say, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to, the supervisors will get a comment.
Oh, I just wanted to respond. That's okay.
You want to respond? Go ahead. Anybody else from the public wish to speak on resolutions? Okay, we'll do reading of resolutions. Yep.
I get one more that I should have mentioned, which is Resolution 559. That's a resolution supporting the recommendations of the Adirondack Association of Towns and Villages and the Adirondack Park Local Government Review Board regarding the State Land Master Plan, which is required by its terms to have major reviews every 5 years. They've had no review in 27 years. And the local government has requested for most of that time that the provisions be reviewed. There's numerous changes that local government is recommending. Yesterday, the Intercounty Legislative Committee, the Adirondacks, passed a resolution in support of the recommendations that are attached to this resolution. One of the main points is that when the Adirondack Park Agency Act was passed in the early 1970s, Governor Rockefeller signed a memorandum in which he specifically talked about balance. And then in his press release when he signed the State Land Master Plan, he talked about balance between the environment and the needs of the residents. And then in the Statement of Legislative Findings and Purposes of the Act, they specifically talked about balance. The State Land Master Plan specifically rejects balance as it's written now, and that's one of our major requests, and that's included in the resolution.
Thank you. We have a reading of resolutions.
Resolutions 509 through 558 were mailed. Resolution 552 was amended after mailing, and motion is needed to approve this resolution as amended.
Motion? Motion by Supervisor Sokol. Do we have a second by Supervisor Thomas? All those in favor? Aye.
Motion is needed to bring resolutions 508 and 559 and 560 to the floor.
We have a motion? Motion by Supervisor Banzel, second by Supervisor Dixon. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Here, okay. All right, discussion on resolutions. Supervisor Seeber.
Just in response to Mr. Whitehead, but also I'd hoped to bring this up today. While $300 is certainly not unreasonable for any of our raises in that 2%, and while legally permissible, as our county attorney has brought up, ethically, I'm uncomfortable with this. I've brought it up to the chairman, to our budget officer. I've spoken with some of you about it. But as a member of the Board of Supervisors, every day we ask department heads to cut their budget, to find any and every penny that they can. And while we all know our salary, what it's going to be if we're fortunate enough to be elected, I certainly didn't run for office expecting or hoping for any type of a raise. You know, at this juncture, I'd like to ask that whatever the $300 or some odd amount for a raise for my specific position as supervisor, I'd like to somehow ask to refuse that, to not accept it. If I'm not able to do so, I would ask some type of a resolution foregoing the 2% raise for supervisors if the support is there. And lastly, if it's not, I would just like the budget or the minutes to reflect that, you know, while we're not in dire financial straits, we have a lot of big decisions coming up in front of us, and many people might say it's $300, what's the big deal? I say it's taxpayer money, we need to be accountable for it. It's 2%, and ethically, I'm just uncomfortable accepting it. So I'm not sure where to go from here, but I wanted to bring it up once again and see perhaps if there's any support for that.
Supervisor Sokol?
You know, the more and more I think about this, and I had an opportunity to talk to a couple of department heads as well, it is only $300, and I commend the budget officer for probably having one of the tougher budgets this year. But in light of it potentially going towards a part-time position or an internship or anything like that, I would like to side with Rachel on this one, and if there's any possible way to retract our, I would like to see if any of the other supervisors have any, if there's any merit for this, or
You want to waive the rules, then, I guess, wouldn't we?
I mean, they need to make a motion, but it would be.
It has to be applicable to everybody? So do you want to put that in a form of motion? Somebody want to put that in a form of motion?
I would like to do that.
Supervisor Sieber, a second by Supervisor Sokol. Do we do a voice vote?
I'm sorry. Did you move to waive the rules?
No.
We did, yes. They didn't waive the rules. So I thought they were just doing the waiver of the rules.
You need to waive the rules.
Yeah, that's what I asked. Are you moving to waive the rules?
Please.
Okay, we have motion and second waive the rules. Now, does somebody want to introduce a motion to rescind the 2% increase?
I'll introduce it.
Hold on. Oh, we have to vote on waiving rules. All those in favor of waiving rules?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, carried. Now,
Now you need a regular motion.
need a motion to amend the pay raise for the supervisors. Motion by Supervisor Sieber, second by Supervisor Sokol. Any discussion? Yes.
All right, I guess I would just point out the same thing that Supervisor Taylor said, which is the only action we've taken with respect to our salaries in 7 years is to reduce our pay by 5%.
Yes.
I mean, I don't care whether we get $300 more or not, but it doesn't seem unreasonable. Maybe an alternative would be to put it up for a permissive referendum if people want to vote it down.
Yes, Supervisor.
I just have a comment. I think that maybe it should go to legislative and Fred's committee to look at, to see if we should in the future do this differently. There's the Law 200 that covers the supervisors, the local Law 200. There's the provision that the county administrator, since he's not on a term, doesn't have to be part of 551. Maybe that's something that we can look at in legislative this year and clean up going into next year.
Yeah, I mean, you know, my position is I would certainly not object to it being subject to a permissive referendum, but I don't think it's unreasonable what's been proposed by the budget officer.
We have a motion and second. Yes, more discussion?
Yeah, well, when I was on the Common Council in the city, we could never vote for our own raise. We would vote for the next cycle, for the next term. Maybe that's the way we should, you know, because it's sort of self-serving to vote for your own raise. If we voted for the next, you know, for the next group of people who may well be ourselves, at least we're shifting it.
Okay. Supervisor Wood?
I think that Jim has a good idea, but it's my understanding that this board couldn't bind a future board to do such a thing. I don't think that that's something we can actually do, is it, Martin?
Well, that's always the, sort of the age-old debate, do we bind future boards? But I think Supervisor Wood raises a good point in this particular instance on that issue. And with respect to, I might add, with respect to the permissive referendum, my understanding, and I know there may be some disagreement in the room among this, but my understanding is that a matter for a permissive referendum can only be subject to a permissive referendum if it is specified by a particular statute. Here, it's my opinion that you're governed by County Law 200 as to how your raises are handled. So I just thought I might add that as well.
Any other discussion? Supervisor?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, 2 weeks ago at our special budget meeting, I also brought up the fact that I was very uncomfortable giving myself a raise. And thank you, Rachel, for bringing it up again, and Matt and Jim. And I had proposed at that meeting that we delay our raise to the next election cycle too, basically, because the voters either need to have a referendum to say, hey, do these guys deserve a raise or not? Or we can vote it to the next election cycle, and then obviously the voters have a say there too. So I just think that's the fair way of going about it, and that's my 2 cents. Thank you.
Okay, we'll do a voice vote.
Okay, I'll catch up on the resolution waiving the rules will be number 561, and number 562 will be to amend the tentative budget to rescind salary increases for supervisors for 2015. Supervisor Thomas?
We're voting on 508 or
No, 562, the one that was just brought to the floor.
562? No.
Ms. Wood?
Yes.
Mr. Conover?
No.
Mr. Monroe?
I'm sorry.
The one that was just brought to the floor to...
562?
Yes.
No.
Mr. Gerard?
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt?
Yes.
Mr. Taylor?
No.
Mr. Brock?
Yes.
Mr. Kenny?
No.
Mrs. Frazier?
No.
Mr. Simpson?
Yes.
Mr. Vansalo?
No.
Mr. Dickinson?
Is this, we're voting for the rescinding the raise?
Rescinding them, yes.
Okay. I vote yes.
Mr. Merlino?
No.
Mr. Stroud?
Yes.
Ms. Seaver?
Yes.
Mr. Sokol?
Yes.
Mr. Beatty?
Yes.
Mr. Westcott?
Yes.
Chairman Garrity?
No.
643, that passes.
Okay. Any other resolutions to be brought from the floor?
With regard to my earlier statements, I'd like
We need to
to
waive
make a
the-
motion to waive the rules.
Okay, we have a motion to waive the rule. Do we have a second? Second by Supervisor Westcott. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
That will be Resolution 563, waiving the rules, and 564.
Somebody want to make a motion to amend the raise? Supervisor Wood? Second by Supervisor Westcott. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we'll do a voice vote.
Mr. Thomas?
This is to do what now?
Just amend the tentative budget to adjust the salary for the county administrator to 2%.
No.
Ms. Wood?
Yes.
Mr. Conover?
No.
Mr. Monroe?
No.
Mr. Gerard?
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt?
Yes.
Mr. Taylor?
No.
Mr. Brock?
Yes.
Mr. Kenny?
No.
Mrs. Frazier?
Yes.
Mr. Simpson?
Yes.
Mr. Vansalo?
Yes.
Mr. Dickinson?
No.
Mr. Merlino?
No.
Mr. Stroud?
No.
Ms. Seaver?
Yes.
Mr. Sokol?
No.
Mr. Beatty?
Yes.
Mr. Westcott?
Yes.
Chairman Garrity?
No.
I believe that failed. 467, yes. 533, no, so that fails.
Passed?
No, it failed.
Failed. Okay. Any other discussion on any other resolutions? Any other voice votes requested? Supervisor Westcott.
I just call for a roll call on 546.
Okay. Any other? Okay, I'll ask Joan to start the vote.
508, making supplemental appropriations. Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. Wood?
Yes.
Mr. Conover?
Yes.
Mr. Monroe?
Yes.
Mr. Gerard?
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt?
Yes.
Mr. Taylor?
Yes.
Mr. Brock?
Yes.
Mr. Kenny?
Yes.
Mrs. Frazier?
Yes.
Mr. Simpson?
Yes.
Mr. Vansalo?
Yes.
Mr. Dickinson?
Yes.
Mr. Merlino?
Yes.
Mr. Stroud?
Yes.
Ms. Seaver?
Yes.
Mr. Sokol?
Yes.
Mr. Beatty?
Yes.
Mr. Westcott?
Yes.
Chairman Garrity?
Yes.
509, amending the county budget. Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. Wood?
Yes.
Mr. Conover?
Yes.
Mr. Monroe?
Yes.
Mr. Gerard?
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt?
Yes.
Mr. Taylor?
Yes.
Mr. Brock?
Yes.
Mr. Kenny?
Yes.
Mrs. Frazier?
Yes.
Mr. Simpson?
Yes.
Mr. Vansalo?
Yes.
Mr. Dickinson?
Yes.
Mr. Merlino?
Yes.
Mr. Stroud?
Yes.
Ms. Seaver?
Yes.
Mr. Sokol?
Yes.
Mr. Beatty?
Yes.
Mr. Westcott?
Yes.
Chairman Garrity?
Yes.
532, amending the table of organization. Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. Wood?
Yes.
Mr. Conover?
Yes.
Mr. Monroe?
Yes.
Mr. Gerard?
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt?
Yes.
Mr. Taylor?
Yes.
Mr. Brock?
Yes.
Mr. Kenny?
Yes.
Mrs. Frazier?
Yes.
Mr. Simpson?
Yes.
Mr. Vansalo?
Yes.
Mr. Dickinson?
Yes.
Mr. Merlino?
Yes.
Mr. Stroud?
Yes.
Ms. Seaver?
Yes.
Mr. Sokol?
Yes.
Mr. Beatty?
Yes.
Mr. Westcott?
Yes.
Chairman Garrity?
Yes.
538, appropriating funds from deferred revenue to Gaslight Village budget. Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. Wood?
Yes.
Mr. Conover?
Yes.
Mr. Monroe?
Yes.
Mr. Gerard?
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt?
Yes.
Mr. Taylor?
Yes.
Mr. Brock?
Yes.
Mr. Kenny?
Yes.
Mrs. Frazier?
Yes.
Mr. Simpson?
Yes.
Mr. Vansalo? Mr. Dickinson?
Yes.
Mr. Merlino?
Yes.
Mr. Stroud?
Yes.
Ms. Seaver?
Yes.
Mr. Sokol?
Yes.
Mr. Beatty?
Yes.
Mr. Westcott?
Yes.
Chairman Garrity?
Yes.
539, establishing capital project. Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. Wood?
Yes.
Mr. Conover?
Yes.
Mr. Monroe?
Yes.
Mr. Gerard?
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt?
Yes.
Mr. Taylor?
Yes.
Mr. Brock?
Yes.
Mr. Kenny?
Yes.
Mrs. Frazier?
Yes.
Mr. Simpson?
Yes.
Mr. Vansalo? Mr. Dickinson?
Yes.
Mr. Merlino?
Yes.
Mr. Stroud?
Yes.
Ms. Seaver?
Yes.
Mr. Sokol?
Yes.
Mr. Beatty?
Yes.
Mr. Westcott?
Yes.
Chairman Garrity?
Yes.
540, establishing capital project, CR 31 bridge painting. Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. Wood?
Yes.
Mr. Conover?
Yes.
Mr. Monroe?
Yes.
Mr. Gerard?
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt?
Yes.
Mr. Taylor?
Yes.
Mr. Brock?
Yes.
Mr. Kenny?
Yes.
Mrs. Frazier?
Yes.
Mr. Simpson?
Yes.
Mr. Vansalo?
Yes.
Mr. Dickinson?
Yes.
Mr. Merlino?
Yes.
Mr. Stroud?
Yes.
Ms. Seaver?
Yes.
Mr. Sokol?
Yes.
Mr. Beatty?
Yes.
Mr. Westcott?
Yes.
Chairman Garrity?
Yes.
541, establishing capital project county bridge painting. Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. Wood?
Yes.
Mr. Conover?
Yes.
Mr. Monroe?
Yes.
Mr. Gerard?
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt?
Yes.
Mr. Taylor?
Yes.
Mr. Brock?
Yes.
Mr. Kenny?
Yes.
Mrs. Frazier?
Yes.
Mr. Simpson?
Yes.
Mr. Vansalo? Mr. Dickinson?
Yes.
Mr. Merlino?
Yes.
Mr. Stroud?
Yes.
Ms. Seaver?
Yes.
Mr. Sokol?
Yes.
Mr. Beatty?
Yes.
Mr. Westcott?
Yes.
Chairman Garrity?
Yes.
544, appropriating funds from general fund to transfers capital projects. Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. Wood?
Yes.
Mr. Conover?
Yes.
Mr. Monroe?
Yes.
Mr. Gerard?
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt?
Yes.
Mr. Taylor?
Yes.
Mr. Brock?
Yes.
Mr. Kenny?
Yes.
Mrs. Frazier?
Yes.
Mr. Simpson?
Yes.
Mr. Vansalo?
Yes.
Mr. Dickinson?
Yes.
Mr. Merlino?
Yes.
Mr. Stroud?
Yes.
Ms. Seaver?
Yes.
Mr. Sokol?
Yes.
Mr. Beatty?
Yes.
Mr. Westcott?
Yes.
Chairman Garrity?
Yes.
545, increasing capital project for the court space expansion. Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. Wood?
Yes.
Mr. Conover?
Yes.
Mr. Monroe?
Yes.
Mr. Gerard?
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt?
Yes.
Mr. Taylor?
Yes.
Mr. Brock?
Yes.
Mr. Kenny?
Yes.
Mrs. Frazier?
Yes.
Mr. Simpson?
Yes.
Mr. Vansalo?
Yes.
Mr. Dickinson?
Yes.
Mr. Merlino?
Yes.
Mr. Stroud?
Yes.
Ms. Seaver?
Yes.
Mr. Sokol?
Yes.
Mr. Beatty?
No.
Mr. Westcott?
No.
Chairman Garrity?
Yes.
Resolution 546, adopting court expansion needs assessment and proceeding with concept 1. Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. Wood?
Yes.
Mr. Conover?
Yes.
Mr. Monroe?
Yes.
Mr. Gerard?
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt?
Yes.
Mr. Taylor?
Yes.
Mr. Brock?
Yes.
Mr. Kenny?
Yes.
Mrs. Frazier?
Yes.
Mr. Simpson?
Yes.
Mr. Vansalo?
No.
Mr. Dickinson?
Yes.
Mr. Merlino?
Yes.
Mr. Stroud?
Yes.
Ms. Seaver?
Yes.
Mr. Sokol?
Yes.
Mr. Beatty?
Yes.
Mr. Westcott?
No.
Chairman Garrity?
Yes.
Resolution 549, adopting Warren County Sewer District Assessment Rule. Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. Wood?
Yes.
Mr. Conover?
Yes.
Mr. Monroe?
Yes.
Mr. Gerard? Mr. McDevitt?
Yes.
Mr. Taylor?
Yes.
Mr. Brock?
Yes.
Mr. Kenny?
Yes.
Mrs. Frazier?
Yes.
Mr. Simpson?
Yes.
Mr. Vansalo?
Yes.
Mr. Dickinson?
Yes.
Mr. Merlino?
Yes.
Mr. Stroud?
Yes.
Ms. Seaver?
Yes.
Mr. Sokol?
Yes.
Mr. Beatty?
Yes.
Mr. Westcott?
Yes.
Chairman Garrity?
Yes.
Resolution 550, enacting local law number 6 with the amendments as outlined by the county attorney. Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. Wood?
Yes.
Mr. Conover?
Yes.
Mr. Monroe?
Yes.
Mr. Gerard?
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt?
Yes.
Mr. Taylor?
Yes.
Mr. Brock?
Yes.
Mr. Kenny?
Yes.
Mrs. Frazier?
Yes.
Mr. Simpson?
Yes.
Mr. Vansalo?
Yes.
Mr. Dickinson?
Yes.
Mr. Merlino?
Yes.
Mr. Stroud?
Yes.
Ms. Seaver?
Yes.
Mr. Sokol?
Yes.
Mr. Beatty?
Yes.
Mr. Westcott?
Yes.
Chairman Garrity?
Yes.
552, amending the tentative budget. Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. Wood?
Yes.
Mr. Conover?
Yes.
Mr. Monroe?
Yes.
Mr. Gerard?
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt?
Yes.
Mr. Taylor?
Yes.
Mr. Brock?
Yes.
Mr. Kenny?
Yes.
Mrs. Frazier?
Yes.
Mr. Simpson?
Yes.
Mr. Vansalo?
Yes.
Mr. Dickinson?
Yes.
Mr. Merlino?
Yes.
Mr. Stroud?
Yes.
Ms. Seaver?
Yes.
Mr. Sokol?
Yes.
Mr. Beatty?
Yes.
Mr. Westcott?
Yes.
Chairman Garrity?
Yes.
Resolution 553, adopting the 2015 county budget. Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. Wood?
Yes.
Mr. Conover?
Yes.
Mr. Monroe?
Yes.
Mr. Gerard?
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt?
Yes.
Mr. Taylor?
Yes.
Mr. Brock?
Yes.
Mr. Kenny?
Yes.
Mrs. Frazier?
Yes.
Mr. Simpson?
Yes.
Mr. Vansalo?
Yes.
Mr. Dickinson?
Yes.
Mr. Merlino?
Yes.
Mr. Stroud?
Yes.
Ms. Seaver?
Yes.
Mr. Sokol?
Yes.
Mr. Beatty?
No.
Mr. Westcott?
No.
Chairman Garrity.
Yes.
Resolution 555, adopting the salary and compensation plan. Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. Wood?
Yes.
Mr. Conover?
Yes.
Mr. Monroe?
Yes.
Mr. Gerard?
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt?
Yes.
Mr. Taylor?
Yes.
Mr. Brock?
Yes.
Mr. Kenny?
Yes.
Mrs. Frazier?
Yes.
Mr. Simpson?
Yes.
Mr. Vansalo?
Yes.
Mr. Dickinson?
Yes.
Mr. Merlino?
Yes.
Mr. Stroud?
Yes.
Ms. Seaver?
Yes.
Mr. Sokol?
Yes.
Mr. Beatty?
Yes.
Mr. Westcott?
Yes.
Chairman Garrity.
Yes.
Collective.
Mr.
Collective on
Chairman,
all the rest?
There's one vote that, 546, that I believe I said yes. I meant to say no. I apologize for that. Too late.
Are you allowed to change it? Okay. Collective on the other, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried. Any announcements?
Happy Thanksgiving.
Yes.
Anybody wish to address the board?
Take that back.
Yeah, well,
Hold on, we have privilege of floor.
First of all, I'd like to agree with Mr. Monroe in his comments a little bit earlier about the permissive referendum. It certainly wasn't my intention to say that you guys did not deserve a $300 raise, and I think that if this is taken up again in the future, it's going to be the same kind of, problem that you get into ethically, and I think really it is proper to do it via something like 555 was, or 551 was, and just have it subject to public referendum, and I hope in the future, that you can do that. The other comment I wanted to make, however, it addresses what Mr. Sokol was terming the final contract coming up for the sale of Westmount. And I was here just, a little while ago when, in April and in May, when you guys decided to go down this road of further negotiations, there was a lot of talk of off-ramps. There were going to be lots of off-ramps on this process, and I have yet to see an off-ramp. I attended a public meeting 2 days ago, which turned out not to be not so public. There were some things discussed there. I was not allowed to see a copy of the draft contract that you have in front of you. But I have serious concerns. I'm seeing no off-ramps, but I can see the toll booths straight ahead, and I'm getting concerned because I don't know how much this is going to cost and what the details are. And if you remember, the mess that we got to with the cogen plant and everything in the beginning had everything to do with the contract. And there's probably in that, hundreds of pages of that contract, there are probably only 3 or 4 paragraphs that caused all the damage. But it took a lot of time to find those 3 or 4 paragraphs. So I would encourage you not to rush through this decision. I know it's an important decision, but I would suggest that you give it the time it deserves, because it could have some great impacts. And I want to close by just reading some comments from earlier minutes on the same topic. They actually occurred on June 27th of 2008. And at that point in time, your consultant, Mr. McCarthy, was made aware that all of a sudden these payments are not coming through from the state for the cogen, and he had some comments on that. Mr. McCarthy apprised that the impact for the rate appeal that had been filed for the depreciation of the cogen plant had not been accrued. He pins his hope on the certificate of need, which is a contract between the county and essentially the New York State Department of Health. And he says that, we will prevail on this issue. Well, it's now 6 years later, and you have not prevailed on that issue. You have not collected, you're $1 million in arrears on that. And while you might prevail based on that contract between yourselves and the New York State Department of Health, once you sell this facility, and I don't know how it's intended to be done, but that contract is going to mean nothing. That certificate of need, which is what he keeps on going back to, is not going to apply to anything. It's between the New York State Department of Health and how they reimburse a county nursing home and a county, and that's not going to have any bearing on what you hope to do. So I would hope that you would not rely on just Mr. McCarthy for this assurance, because his he has not been accurate to date, or at least for the last 6 years. And one other telling thing from there, he stated, this is Mr. McCarthy, that the auditors for the Medical Inspector General's office were not in favor of cogen projects, and he wanted the county to be aware of the possibility that there would be a need to defend the certificate of need. Well, nothing has changed on that line. I've talked to Ms. Henkel, and the controller at Westmount, and she talks to the New York State Department of Health, and they're all thinking that this money should be coming your way. But they say, but OMIG is holding it up. And OMIG doesn't talk to us. OMIG doesn't talk to anybody, but they're holding it up. And so nothing has changed since 2008 in that regard, and I don't think anything will change in the future. But in the same meeting, 2008, some hope was held out, and this will be my last quote, and I'll sit down. Mr. Payne said that he had spoken with Paul Dusick, county attorney, and had been informed that Warren County was protected by the performance contract with Siemens Building Technologies Incorporated. He explained that due to the facts that Siemens had initiated the certificate of need and had guaranteed an annual savings to the county, if the Medicaid Inspector General's office declared the certificate of need to be void and withdrew the reimbursement, Siemens would have to ensure that the county broke even. Well, we know today that that's not a fact. We know that there never had been any assurances from Siemens that that's the case, and there never will be. I mean, no one's ever suggested it. So, you've gotten a lot of advice over the years. Some of it hasn't been very good. I hope you look very carefully at the advice that you're getting now, and I hope you give it the due consideration that it deserves. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to address the board? Again, I would like to thank everybody for turning out. It's been a good turnout, and I appreciate everybody's efforts. The motion to adjourn by Supervisor McDevitt, accepted by Supervisor Draco. Thank you all.